Imagine for just a second that you have it all. You have eternal life.
You possess unaging, flawless beauty.
Right. And you have the distinct advantage of 150 years of compound interest sitting quietly in various bank accounts.
Which is honestly the real dream here.
It totally is. I mean, you are, by every definition of the word, an apex predator of the night. But instead of brooding in some sprawling, candlelit Gothic castle, you are currently standing on the platform of London's Archway tube station.
Not exactly glamorous.
No, not at all. The screech of the trains is deafening. It smells faintly of ozone and stale coffee. And you are hiding behind a pair of massive, oversized sunglasses. And you are desperately trying not to cry because your boyfriend just dumped you.
It's quite the image to start with, and the reason for the breakup is, well, it's even better.
It's so painfully relatable, right? He dumped you because you sent him 104 text messages in a single week.
A classic mistake.
Welcome to our deep dive. Today, we are exploring a completely fresh, hilariously mundane, and honestly deeply tragic take on vampire lore.
We are pulling from Pip Knight's novel, Aubrey Wants to Die.
Yes. And our mission today is to thoroughly analyze this protagonist, Aubrey. We're looking at someone who is fighting a desperate, centuries-long battle against her own nature.
We're going to see what it actually looks like when immortality is less about seductive glamour and a lot more about sheer, grinding, everyday anxiety.
Because it sounds exhausting.
It really does. What's fascinating here is how entirely this text subverts the classic Gothic tropes we've all been conditioned to expect. Aubrey isn't some glamorous predator draped in velvet sipping from crystal goblets.
No, she's basically a highly anxious, millennial-adjacent 150-year-old woman.
Exactly, with severe abandonment issues. If you look at the text, she has deliberately curated her daily life to be as mediocre as humanly possible, purely to fly under the radar.
Yeah, she lives in a dingy basement flat right next to a noisy pub.
Edra works at a lingerie concession in Selfridges, of all places, where she has to deal with a deeply lecherous floor manager named Kenny.
Oh my gosh, Kenny. We will definitely get to Kenny. But first, her diet. This is where the sheer logistics of her life become an absolute nightmare.
Because she refuses to feed normally.
Right. She is terrified of hurting humans, so she strictly drinks bagged blood. But she can't just, leave a bag of O negative sitting next to the oat milk in her fridge.
Because she's renting.
Yes, she's renting. And she has landlord inspections every 6 months. So where does she hide her blood? She stashes it in a vintage turquoise Fortnum and Mason biscuit tin.
Which is just a brilliant little detail of domestic paranoia.
It is. And it gets worse. When she's throwing the empty blood bags out, she wraps them in dirty nappies.
Just so her landlord won't get suspicious if he happens to look in the communal bins.
The level of performance is just exhausting to read about. I mean, she even keeps a pristine toaster and an expensive kettle perfectly displayed on her kitchen counter purely for optics.
For the optics.
She has never once plugged them in. It's all just a meticulously constructed stage play of being a normal, boring human.
It's a performance driven by absolute underlying terror. She has spent a century and a half violently editing herself to fit into a society that doesn't even know she exists.
Yeah.
But to maintain that facade, she has to navigate a world that gets pop culture vampire lore entirely frustratingly wrong.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because Aubrey's specific frustrations with human vampire myths are so funny, but also deeply depressing for her. You read Dracula or you watch a movie and you think you know the rules.
But Aubrey has physically tested them all.
Right. Because, as the title implies, she actively wants to die. She actually threw herself off Waterloo Bridge into the icy, churning waters of the Thames, just hoping to drown.
And what happens? She just bobs right back to the surface?
Bobs right up. Freezing, miserable, and entirely alive.
Exactly. Stakes through the heart. They don't work. They just hurt. Holy water. Garlic.
Yeah.
Complete cinematic nonsense.
And sunlight. This is my favorite part. It doesn't make her burst into dramatic flames or sparkle like a diamond. It just gives her terrible brain fog and makes her incredibly irritable.
She is literally stuck here, forced to navigate the modern world. Trapped in an existence she didn't choose.
Which means she has to rely on highly specific, somewhat unethical loopholes just to feed herself without breaking her own moral code.
Yes. Let's talk about her arrangement with her human friend, S.
S is a technician at a local blood bank. Aubrey essentially runs this black market barter system. She trades weed gummies.
Which she buys from Brendan, the bartender at the pub upstairs.
Right, she trades those gummies in exchange for S stealing bags of A positive and B negative blood right before they go into the quarantine fridge.
But it's not easy. Aubrey has to time it perfectly.
She goes to the clinic, fakes a sudden drop in blood sugar to get S to leave the room for a juice box, and then she frantically stuffs the cold blood bags into her purse.
It really highlights a crucial point about her abilities, or rather, her lack of them. In the movies, vampires easily manipulate humans with seamless mind control to get what they want.
But Aubrey's powers are incredibly weak.
There's that scene where she tries to use classic vampire hypnotism on a goth teenager outside the blood bank, just to steal her vape pen.
And it completely fails. The teenager just stares at her and tells her to shove off.
Aubrey's one actual supernatural power is what she calls a dud power.
A dud power. Occasionally, and with absolutely zero control, when she physically touches someone, she gets a flash of their past life memories.
She finds it mostly annoying, but it really underscores how profoundly isolated she is by this secret life.
Definitely.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you really see the depth of her loneliness and as she desperately seeks out community. Aubrey is terrified of being discovered. She goes to great lengths with the nappies and the toaster to hide. Yet, where does she spend her free time?
On the internet. Specifically on the Vampire Hunters Collective forum.
The VHC.
When I read that, I just couldn't believe it. Why on earth would she go there?
Because it is the ultimate irony of extreme isolation. Under the username @Margot, she secretly hangs out on a message board filled with people actively trying to track down and kill vampires.
She even genuinely befriends a bored Connecticut housewife named Sally on there.
Aubrey is so starved for connection, so desperate to be in a space where people simply acknowledge that her species actually exists, that she seeks comfort among the exact people organizing to hunt her down.
That is so dark.
It makes sense in a twisted way.
Yeah.
If you're spending your nights seeking out people who want to kill you just to feel seen, you are prime real estate for the first semi-decent guy to completely derail your life.
Which brings us to Jonathan. Aubrey finally finds a real connection offline. She meets him at a pub after he steps in to subtly save her from this creeping guy hitting on her.
A guy Aubrey refers to entirely as Pepperoni Guy, based on his scent.
Yes, Pepperoni Guy. But Jonathan is polite, he has kind blue eyes, he wears a mustard jumper. They sit down for a drink, the conversation is flowing, and underneath the sticky pub table, their knees accidentally touch.
And that physical contact triggers her dud power.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Aubrey gets a flash, a vision. But it's not just some random medieval battlefield or a Victorian street sweeper. She sees a memory of a living room in 1875.
She sees a Christmas tree with unlit candles.
And then the memory shifts into a bedroom, and she sees a woman brushing her hair in an oval mirror. The woman in the memory is Aubrey.
It's a memory from the day before she was turned into a vampire.
Jonathan is the literal reincarnation of her human husband.
It is the ultimate intoxicating validation for a hopeless romantic. For 150 years, Aubrey has felt completely broken, monstrous, and unlovable.
And now the universe has seemingly delivered undeniable, magical proof of true love. She has a cosmic soulmate.
But of course, the psychological reality of trauma doesn't magically disappear just because you meet your soulmate.
No, it really doesn't. They start dating, and for 5 weeks, it's amazing. But Aubrey carries 150 years of heavy emotional baggage.
Let's look at her track record.
Right. When she woke up as a vampire covered in blood in the 1870s, her sire, the one who made her, had already abandoned her.
The first vampire she met after that, a guy named Hans, abandoned her.
When she finally trusted a human guy named Freddie with the truth in the 1930s, he ran away to join the war. So when Jonathan gets busy with his modern-day office job and doesn't text back immediately, Aubrey completely spirals.
You might ask why a 150-year-old hasn't learned to play it cool by now. But her abandonment issues are pathological. She completely smothers him.
As we mentioned at the start of our dip dive, she sends him 104 text messages in a week.
Jonathan, understandably overwhelmed by this tidal wave of neediness, asks for a break because he feels the dynamic is getting toxic.
I mean, think about your absolute worst breakup. You know that feeling, right? Where the bottom just completely drops out of your stomach and the world feels empty.
Now multiply that feeling by 1.5 centuries of absolute isolating loneliness.
Aubrey's reaction isn't just a standard breakup sadness. It is a full-blown existential crisis. She is standing at the edge of the tube platform, genuinely contemplating jumping onto the tracks.
Even though she knows she'll just survive the train hitting her and probably end up in a government testing facility.
So she goes home to drink her miserable mug of microwaved bagged blood, utterly defeated.
And that is the precise moment her past decides to kick her door down. After a century and a half of absolute radio silence, Oscar, her maker, breaks into her basement apartment.
He bypassed all her careful security. He knows exactly who she is, where she lives, and he has been watching her for a long time.
The contrast in this scene is terrifying. Aubrey has spent decades wondering if her sire was kept from her by force, if maybe he was actually a good person who got trapped.
But Oscar is the quintessential chilling apex predator. He sits in her living room, casually drops her carefully procured bag of A-positive into the rubbish bin like it's garbage, and pins her to the wall by her throat before she can even blink.
Oscar is the physical manifestation of everything Aubrey has been running from. He views her pathetic, blood-bag-drinking, self-hating lifestyle not just with disdain, but as a genuine liability.
In his mind, she is a weak link.
He tells her frankly that humans are getting smarter, modern surveillance technology is everywhere, and her clumsiness, her erratic, highly emotional behavior over a human boy is going to expose the entire vampire race.
And he doesn't just threaten her, he completely orchestrates a trap. Aubrey suddenly realizes her flat smells like oxidized blood. She checks her laundry hamper and finds a running t-shirt soaked in blood.
Oscar casually reveals that he murdered Kenny, her horrible, lecherous floor manager from Selfridges.
He killed him while Kenny was out for his 5 a.m. marathon training run, and Oscar planted the evidence right there in Aubrey's home. I was horrified reading this. It's such a cold, calculating frame job.
This raises an important question. What is Oscar's actual endgame here? He creates an impossible ultimatum. He tells Aubrey she has two choices. Either she steps up, embraces her true predatory nature, and starts feeding on live humans under his direct tutelage.
Or he will let her take the fall for Kenny's brutal murder.
He even mentions that he planted backup evidence in the home of Aubrey's human friend, Daphne. He is perfectly willing to let an innocent woman go to prison just to force Aubrey's hand.
To really drive the point home, he takes her to an exclusive underground Mayfair club to show her how a real vampire operates. He hypnotizes 2 human women effortlessly, feeds on them right in front of Aubrey, and then, this completely confused me when I first read it, he bites his own wrist.
Yes.
He presses his bleeding wrist into the women's wounds. Why does he do that?
That's a great question, and it speaks to the hierarchy of vampire blood in this lore. Think of ancient vampire blood like a highly concentrated, supernatural stem cell treatment mixed with adrenaline. Because Oscar is so old and powerful, his blood has profound regenerative properties. By introducing his blood into the human's wounds, it rapidly heals the tissue, closing the bite marks entirely.
Wow.
He then wipes their memories and sends them on their way. He's demonstrating a clinical precision. He's showing Aubrey that you can be a monster, indulge your darkest cravings, and still leave absolutely no trace.
It's a terrifying display of dominance, and he doesn't stop there. He actually forces Aubrey to drink his blood, right?
He does. He tells her it will temporarily grant her a massive boost in her own strength and abilities, enough to protect herself while she makes her decision.
Though, of course, the threat against her friends means it's not really a decision at all.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for Aubrey? She suddenly has Oscar's ancient, powerful, adrenaline-laced blood pumping through her veins. And what does she do with these temporary superpowers? Does she fight him? No. She gets incredibly jealous. She sees on Instagram that Jonathan is spending time with a beautiful, successful coworker named Olivia Coombs. Fueled by heartbreak and this new, intoxicating rush of physical power, Aubrey goes to Jonathan's townhouse and literally scales the outside brick wall like an insect.
She completely bypasses all normal boundaries and breaks right into his bedroom while he isn't home.
She breaks in, paces around, sniffs his clothes to try and trigger a past life vision, and then she takes one of her lucky gold birdcage earrings and leaves it right under his desk.
It's this desperate psychological nudge, hoping he'll find it, think of her, and call her.
She barely escapes out the back door before he comes home.
It's erratic, dangerous behavior. But the real turning point, the moment of clarity, happens when she gets back to her own flat.
The adrenaline starts to wear off.
And the reality of what she's becoming starts to set in. She gets frustrated, and in a fit of anger, she hurls her wooden knitting needles across the room.
Because Oscar's blood is still affecting her, she throws them so hard they embed themselves deep into the solid plaster of her wall with a loud thwack.
Aubrey stares at those needles sticking out of the wall, and she realizes she is losing her grip. Her carefully constructed wall of denial is finally crumbling.
Staring at those needles brings up her most terrifying, deeply buried memory. We have to talk about 1922.
It's crucial.
Aubrey was walking down Coventry Street. The cobblestones were wet, it was dark, and she saw a man violently beating a sex worker in an alley. Aubrey intervened. She wanted to do a good thing. She attacked the man to save the woman.
But the moment her teeth hit his neck, the moment she tasted live human blood, everything changed.
The text describes it as pure, unadulterated euphoria. She felt so incredibly alive, so powerful that she nearly lost herself completely to the monster inside. She almost couldn't stop drinking.
And that memory is the vital historical context for Aubrey's entire character. That single night on Coventry Street is the exact reason she strictly drinks bagged, microwaved blood.
She knows exactly what she's capable of.
She knows that the darkness isn't just some external force or a myth. It's woven into her biology, and it feels terrifyingly good when she lets it out. She knows with absolute certainty that if she gives in to Oscar's demands, if she feels that euphoria of feeding on a live human again, she will cross a line she can never, ever uncross.
She is completely cornered. If she fights Oscar, he frames her for Kenny's murder. Or worse, he targets Daphne. Or Jonathan. Or S at the blood bank.
To protect the human friends she actually loves, to protect her reincarnated soulmate who doesn't even want to be in the same room as her anymore, Aubrey makes a final, heartbreaking decision.
She sits in her basement flat, pulls out her phone, and she texts Oscar a single word. Fine.
She surrenders.
She agrees to become the very monster she has spent a century and a half running from.
It's a devastating conclusion to this arc of her story. Ultimately, when you strip away the fangs and the lore, Aubrey's struggle is a hyper-exaggerated metaphor for human self-control.
It perfectly represents that agonizing everyday tension between our basest, darkest instincts and our desperate desire to be perceived as good people.
Aubrey's vampirism is just the narrative vehicle used to explore how utterly exhausting it is to constantly suppress your true nature.
I mean, think about that for yourself. How exhausting is it to constantly edit your words, your reactions, your desires, just to fit neatly into the polite rules of society?
You bite your tongue at work, you hide your weirder hobbies, you try to be palatable.
Aubrey has been doing that on a supernatural scale for 150 years, and it has left her completely hollowed out.
Which leaves us with a profound concept to consider. Aubrey lived for a century and a half, actively shrinking herself down.
She hid her true physical power. She drank literal bagged substitutes of what she really craved. She wrapped her trash in dirty nappies.
All to make the fragile human world around her feel safe and undisturbed.
Right, and it really makes you wonder, at what point does constantly wearing that good mask actually just become a prison of your own making? And when you finally reach your breaking point and take that mask off, are you finally liberating yourself, or are you just unleashing a monster? It's definitely something to chew on the next time you find yourself holding back who you really are.
Indeed it is.
That's all for today's deep dive. We'll see you next time.